Palworld has been out for an entire year. That's right, an entire year, and in that time the developers have released numerous content updates and bug fixes. But that's not the focus of today's video. One of the most successful videos on this channel is the best part of a year out of date. So in this video we'll be taking a look at how Palworld runs on the Steam Deck in 2025. Let's start out with where we started. Throughout 2024, Palworld was playable on the Steam Deck straight out of the box. However, even with the lowest of settings, it was difficult to maintain that 30 frames per second in the game. Played with what appeared to be memory leak issues, the longer the game was played without rebooting, the worse the game performed. And let's not forget those dungeons. Upon entering dungeons, the game would just crash, and reducing the resolution to 480 seemed to help load the dungeon. But shortly after finishing the dungeon, I would have to reboot the game before it crashed due to the memory leak that was already harming the game's performance. There was also the solution of swapping out the game's textures for a cel shader style experience like Breath of the Wild via a mod to improve the performance, but I never gave that one a try. A perfectly clean experience could be found by taking advantage of Nvidia's GeForce Now if you are willing to pay for the service or queue up and watch ads. Yeah, that wasn't a great solution, and it saw me putting the game down and forgetting about it for the best part of the year. Roll on 2025, and with the game's anniversary looming, I booted up the game once more on the Steam Deck, making sure I hadn't moved the installation to the more recently acquired SD card and got to work testing out the game. I started out by setting the graphics settings, setting the frame rate to 30, and lowering all of the settings to their lowest available setting aside from view distance and resolution. View distance I consider to be the most important setting in an open world exploration game like Palworld, and it can be the difference between finding most of the Liftmonk effigies or almost none at all, so I got that one bumped up too high. Whilst not a graphical or performance related topic, the first thing I noticed was the mechanic for summoning pals has changed, as now a pal sphere is no longer thrown. Yeah, you can thank Nintendo and its incredibly simple yet aggressive patents for that one. Moving on to the game, the first thing I did was head straight for a dungeon. With these being the primary cause of memory leaks and crashes on the Steam Deck for me historically, it seemed like the obvious place to start, and it did not disappoint. In fact, due to the dungeons being naturally dark, and this being easier to render, this is now where the game performs at its best, with a consistent 30 frames per second. Heading out into the overworld, everything seemed to be performing great, and running through multiple dungeons didn't seem to impact performance whatsoever. So I bumped up the graphics ever so slightly, setting the shadows to medium to bring more depth to the game's graphics. With shadows on medium, the game was able to maintain 30 frames per second, while still moving around and visiting dungeons. However, when there are multiple pals on the screen, the frame rate does drop to the low 20s. Personally, I accept this trade-off for the better visuals, but if that 30 frames per second is more important to you, then I recommend keeping shadows to its lowest available setting. Also, be sure to disable Steam's recording feature if you have it running by default, if you want to gain that extra frame or two in extra performance. So you've been putting off playing Palworld on your Steam Deck or other portable handheld due to performance and or stability? I say it's time to dust off that game and give it a try. Remember that the game is still in early access, so its performance could only improve with time. If you found this video helpful, consider subscribing to the channel as we push for 1,000 subscribers in 2025. On this channel I try to focus on gaming and portable devices, whether that be the Steam Deck, Nintendo Switch, or even a smartphone, so hit that button and let's see where this channel goes. Until the next video, play casual.